On today's episode of Drummers Eating Pizza, John sits down with Kade Parkin. Kade discusses his favorite kinds of pizza, his early drumming experiences, his current bands, and the great teachers and mentors he's had in his drumming career so far. Please make sure you watch until the end to see Kade play drums in John's studio. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And now, Drummers Eating Pizza.
All right, welcome everybody to episode 4 of Drummers Eating Pizza. We've got our special guest, Kade Parkin.
How's it going, everybody?
Cade plays with every single band in Western Massachusetts and all over. We're going to get into all of that stuff. When I started this show, I was looking for local drummers, and Cade is all over the place. I jokingly in my head call him the mayor of Bishop's Lounge.
they actually offered to give me like the key to the building.
Nice.
Like an honorary key.
You're gonna be in here tomorrow and then the next day. So if you need your stuff, here's a key. Awesome.
My cot's upstairs.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so we've got pizza today from Gino's Pizza in Feeding Hills. Not the Gino's Pizza that Aaron Baccaselli used to own that I worked at, but at some point when I get a real budget for this, I'm gonna make Aaron my pizza chef. He was the boss at the pizza place.
Oh, really?
And he's a drummer.
Oh,
so
nice.
I want him to be my sidekick, and we'll do it in the kitchen, and he can make the pizza and feed us, and then he can chime in with his smart ass comments. But
perfect.
So we've got a 3-cheese pie. I'll put a picture up of it, and we got a margarita pizza. What do you want to start with?
Probably the margarita. I'm staring this one down.
There's a plate for you.
I haven't met too many margarita pizzas I haven't liked.
Yeah, right.
I did order one from one place though, and they gave me chicken and artichoke hearts on it, and I was like, "That's not a margarita pizza."
You know what? There's another place that I go to that I think they do that, but they definitely add other stuff onto it.
Yeah, I'm like, weird.
Yeah. Dig in.
Sweet. Alrighty.
And don't be afraid to chew and talk into the mic. That's part of the fun of the show.
The ASMR of the.
Yeah.
Give it a little tickle.
Flavor's pretty good. Mm-hmm. So it said it's got a garlic spread, so that's probably what they're doing with the base is olive oil, and then I remembered this time, folks. I'd have my kid last time get me paper towels,
napkins, and stuff.
All right, so you grew up in the area, correct? Are you from Western Mass? Are you an implant?
I'm an implant. I'm actually from Worcester.
Okay, well, it's close
not too
enough.
far.
Yeah, not too far.
Not too far.
So, pizza-wise, what's your favorite style of pizza? I consider this Italian-style pizza. I know there's subdivisions of everything. But, what is your favorite kind of pizza?
Well, I think my favorite kind and the kind that I'm most familiar with that I grew up with are two different things, but they both share they're kind of share something together in my heart. Worcester has a lot of Greek pizza.
Okay.
So it has that real thin puffy crust that's real crunchy, and then the bottom's almost fried. It's
I used to work at a place in Holyoke called Manny's, and it was Greek style pizza.
Yeah.
So that's what you grew up on?
That's what I grew up on. So I've had a lot of spots. There's a place in Worcester called JJ's, and I was on their baseball team. They were our baseball team sponsor and stuff. So ate a lot of pizza from there. And then I'm a big fan of New Haven pizza. I really like pizza Napolitana.
And that's the thinner, crispier.
Yeah, wood fired. That's what it's called. Yeah. Usually whenever I'm playing gigs in New Haven, I always make a point to stop there.
Yep.
either at like Sally's or Modern. I think the first one I had was Modern.
Yep.
Band member was telling me that another drummer in the area that used to play around here a lot, Dempsey Zulu, who's no longer with us, he grew up in New Haven, so he always would bring my friend's band always to Modern Pizza, and that was like kind of like the New Haven spot for like the locals.
Yep.
Is how they kind of described it to me. So that was the first one I had, and then Frank Pepe's and Sally's and all that stuff. So
you know who's got a decent wood-fired? Because there's not a lot around here that I've had, but Clemenza's used to be in Westfield, and now it's in West Springfield.
Oh, really?
But they've got a wood-fired, and it's the oven's probably as big as this table. So you would go, and you'd have to wait forever because they were doing takeout. They were doing, people eating in, and there was only so much space to cook the pizza. But every time we got the pizza, it was always good. But it was, thinner, crunchy crust with a little bit of dough in the center, so it's crispy and chewy.
Yeah, and it's not like too crunchy. It's not like a thin crust or nothing like that. But my favorite thing about this style of pizza is that it has like the little burnt parts on it, but it's not really burnt. It's like charred.
It's well done.
It's well done. Something about that, and then their sauce that they use is like a real something about like the fresh ingredients.
Yep.
I typically, if I'm gonna get really nice pizza, I want to get like simple ones.
Yep.
And then usually, if I'm like running around doing gigs all over the place, I usually try to go for like slices at places.
Yeah.
And get usually whatever they have, but something with veggies on it usually for a little bit of,
You feel better about yourself.
Yeah, feel a little better about yourself. You're like, oh, I ate a vegetable today.
Right? Yeah.
Time to get back in the tour van.
I'm trying to get, my kid to eat vegetables. He loves broccoli, but he won't eat broccoli on pizza. And I'm like, dude, just eat it. He won't eat like chicken on pizza. I'm like, you eat chicken. I don't know. Kids are weird.
Yeah, I mean, I totally eat way different than I did when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too.
And that wasn't super long ago, So, things to think about.
Yeah. So, with the Greek pizza, what do you like about the Greek pizza? Because I asked people that came in, they were like, oh, I love Greek pizza. And I was like, well, why do you like Greek pizza? Because when I grew up, there was a place in Westfield called Ida Pizza. And it was Greek pizza. And we would get that like on Fridays, and then maybe like the next time we would get family pizza, which was more of like the doughier, like what I consider like the Italian style pizza.
Yeah, like a red rose and stuff like
exactly, that. Yeah. And I liked that because I always liked the doughy and the bread. But I remember the people in the Greek places said that they thought that they got more pizza for their buck because there wasn't as big of a crust. So they felt like they got more pizza.
More like cheese and more things that weren't just dough.
Yes. Or you just like it because that's what you grew up eating. Or is there something about the Greek pizza? Is it a nostalgic thing or is it a taste? Is it like a comfort?
It's kind of a nostalgia thing, and it's also like I just like that style because it's like a little bit more. I don't know. It seems almost like buttery on the bottom, and it's like crunchy and almost like it's like fried.
Yeah, see,
in a way,
we used to pre-cook the dough, so we'd make the pizzas. You do, So like if you had small pizzas, we would take them and we'd put them in the pizza pan, and we would like par cook it. So it was like maybe a third of the way done.
Wow. Then we could do that.
Then we'd take it out, we'd leave it in the pan, and we'd sauce and cheese it, and then that would go into the walk-in cooler. So if you had a small pizza, it was already sauce and cheese, and if it was cheese, you'd add more cheese.
That's interesting.
But then you'd put the toppings on after, and I think that's why it's like you get that crispy.
It's like blanching a French fry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they're doing.
That's interesting. Yep. That's cool.
So I don't know if every Greek place does that, but that's what we used to do.
That makes a lot of sense to get like a crispier kind of bite out of it.
Yep.
Okay.
And it was nice because when you were busy, the pizza was already made for the most part.
So
you just grab it. Yeah.
If you run out though.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's it. You're out. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And we had that happen a couple times, but usually we were good with our inventory. They usually knew. Yeah, they usually knew what we were how many we needed, and then I don't remember
There's
how
numbers
often.
for these things.
Oh yeah. I wasn't the owner. I was, clearly, but they were just like, all right, here, kid, put this water and dough and mix it together, and take these. These are going to be 8-ounce pizzas. They were small pizzas or whatever the size was. But I remember you'd have to put them all in the oven, and then you'd have to do it while you're trying to like cook other food as well. Yeah. So it's like, you're answering the phone and you're like, oh, I gotta pull these pizzas out.
Time to make a grinder.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. No, it was interesting working in a pizza place.
I worked at a Domino's for a little bit when I was in college.
Yep.
And mostly did delivery, but they taught me how to make pizzas because I wanted to know how. So
it's an essential life skill.
It's important. I think so. Just cooking in general.
Yeah.
I really liked making their pan pizzas.
Yep.
Where you would like lather this like little pan with butter.
Yep. And
then stretch the dough in it, and then do that, and then sauce and cheese and all that stuff, and put it in, and it has like a different kind of crust, which is
nice.
I'm
glad we have pizza here because I'm getting hungry as you're talking about. I'm like, oh, that sounds delicious. All right, so what about favorite toppings? You did say normally you like to go with a real simple pie, but what's your go-to? If this is it, you killed a bunch of people, you're on death row, and they're like, here's your last meal, man. You get one pizza. What is your death row pizza?
My death row pizza. Probably a classic cheese. Like, go for the nostalgia. If I'm on death row, it's gonna be a nostalgia one.
Okay.
But I mean, I like a lot of all types of toppings, like chicken bacon ranch and bacon and pepperoni, and
What don't you like on pizza?
Anchovies. I don't really like.
What about olives?
Sometimes I like olives.
I hate olives.
Black olives. If it was green olives, it'd be a little weird.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of sausage on pizza.
Yeah, me neither.
Like that combo pizza or mushrooms. Like I don't really.
Eat I think it sometimes depends on what the sausage is. If it's not overly covered in sausage, I'm all right with it. And then sometimes if it's like that crumbly sausage where you're like, this is almost like a Hamburg sausage. This texture seems a little weird.
It's a little weird. Yeah, sausage isn't always my favorite. That's pretty much. I mean, I've had like banana peppers on pizza.
Yeah,
that was fine. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff I do like. So
see, I go with at Domino's at work because it's right out the back gate. I get chicken and banana peppers. That's like my go-to pizza.
I remember the weirdest pizza this guy would order when I was at Domino's. He'd get pizza with no cheese and black olives, and that was it.
So sauce and black olives.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was pretty. It didn't look right coming out of the oven.
Yep. We had at that Manny's Pizza. We had this guy that was from India, and I remember he would come in, and everything he ordered, it was either a grilled chicken grinder or a small jalapeno pepper pizza. And I was like, man, how can you eat that? And he said, growing up as a kid, there's so much spice in India that he goes, I've actually like burned away my taste buds. And he goes, if there's not something super hot on it, I can't taste it. So every time he came in, he had to have jalapenos on it. Because I was like, well, what is that like? He goes, it's like tasting gray. He's like, but he said, if I put jalapenos, I get some sort of flavoring to it. But he said, as a kid, my mother made so much, whether it was curry or just the different peppers or, whatever the spices were. But he's like, I don't have much for like taste buds left.
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
That's really interesting.
But it made sense. But the first time he came in, he's like, oh, I want a small jalapeno pizza. And I almost laughed like, no, seriously, dude, what do you want? He's like, I want a small jalapeno pizza. And he ate it. But he would come in like at least once a week. And he'd come in and I go, grinder or pizza? And it would, depending on what it was either grilled chicken with like lettuce, onion, and jalapenos or.
Lettuce.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. Probably because he felt bad and you wanted some vegetables.
Yeah, some veggies.
You with the broccoli on the pizza or something.
Yeah, I would like. There's a place near in Hadley that I go to a lot, and I get their slices. Might have like avocado and chicken and
That's
some
interesting.
other stuff.
I've never had avocado on a pizza. I would eat that.
Oh, it's good. And I throw a little bit of hot sauce on it, and it's like
So you like hot stuff?
a little bit, yeah.
So here's what my plan is for the season finale, or at some point, is we're gonna get past guests, and I'm gonna order the hot ones run of, and we're gonna make pizza, and we're gonna see how many people last to the end.
To the end.
And then I'll try and come up with like that Sean Evans does. The questions get a little bit more
Yeah.
in depth as as the burn comes on. And listen, I like hot stuff, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make the whole. I'm gonna have to. If I'm the host, I'm gonna have to make the whole run. But I'm expecting there's gonna be some tears. There's gonna be some people bowing out. But I'll try and find a pizza place that'll like let us go in and set up like a big round table or something and.
Get fried.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna add you to that list of people.
I love that. I like spicy stuff for sure. I don't eat it in big quantities.
Yeah.
But a little bit of spicy stuff here and
Yeah.
there is usually pretty good. Like hot stuff, like habanero or
Yep.
more.
Yep. So who around here makes your favorite pizza?
That's a really good question.
Locally, since we're starting with local drummers. If people, because for me, I mean, I'm in Westfield, so it's kind of like Westfield, Southwick, just this general area. But somebody had said we were talking about different kinds of pizza, and the Detroit style. There's a place in Ludlow that somebody sent me a message, and I got the message that I saved. I'll figure out where it is. But like where, because you're in Northampton, is that where you live?
I'm in Northampton.
So what, I guess in your general area, or like in Western Mass, that you're like, I love going there for pizza. In case people haven't tried it, it's like, oh, let me go check that place out.
One of my favorite places, it's no longer open. It closed in the pandemic, was Mimo's Pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the sheer quantity of pizza you could get, and it like saved me so many times as a broke college student. And I get like hamburger and bacon and throw some ranch on there like every time.
Now, was that in Northampton?
Yeah, that was right there, across from Newbury Comics.
Because there's a guy that I don't know if you can hear upstairs. The cats, the cats are doing something, and there's a lot of yelling. There's a funeral director, or a guy that's going to school to be a funeral director, and I guess his family owned it.
Oh, wow.
Because we were talking about, like, how'd you get into this? He goes, oh, I was in the restaurant business, and I think he said his family owned Mimo's, and I'm like, oh, I don't think I ever went there, but I do remember the name.
It was really...
So that was the go-to spot. Have you ever been to LaCorey's in West Springfield?
Many a times, because you get that
for
$4 slice.
Yeah,
like,
it's a large pizza for $4.
Was it Ghost Hit Recording now? That's right over there, that church?
Yes.
It used to be Rotary
Yes.
Records, and
Yep.
I cut a record there one time. And the whole time we were there, we were just like making runs to LaCorey's back and forth. Yep. Ate a lot of pizza that weekend.
So what was like... What was it? What's the name of the place in Northampton?
Mimo's?
Mimo's. Was it that type of thing where you got a whole ton of pizza for cheap?
Yeah, you get like a slice that was like... The one slice would fit in this box.
Yeah. For what? Like $4?
Yeah.
$5? Perfect.
$4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. Awesome.
All right. I'm going to try this cheese over here. So this is the three cheese.
This is the three cheese. So it's ricotta, mozzarella, and then they put some, I don't know how much parm is on there, but there's definitely parm on there.
The ricotta is definitely a texture.
Yes.
As part of this pizza.
So, do you like ricotta?
It's not my favorite cheese, but I've never
In small
minded. I'm a
quantities?
big fan of lasagna,
Yeah.
so I definitely I don't put it on anything else usually other than lasagna.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this has got a good taste to it. It's a different I'm trying to see, there's got to be regular sauce on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering with the margarita if there's no sauce and this is what their marinara tastes like, or their pizza sauce.
Yeah.
It's definitely, this tastes a little bit sweeter, which I like.
It is sweet.
Yep.
I noticed it has, because of the amount of cheese, it has like a lot of like, how I would describe it as like a base versus like an acid.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very acidic. So that's something Like some people don't really like a lot of acidity in their foods and stuff like that. Like a lot of people don't really like tomatoes sometimes because they're so acidic and things like that. So,
oh yeah, I got heartburn, acid reflux. I've got everything, but here I am. Yeah, if the doctor said, like, you know, you have to stop eating pizza, I'd be like, sorry, doc, it's not going to happen. Like, just hook me up with a new esophagus, because I'm not stopping. Hence, drummers eating pizza. All right, so let's get into our drumming questions. So some of these are going to be different from past episodes. Some of them are going to be the same because I want to try and, as people go through the things and watch the episodes, I want them to see, like, what's your answer as opposed to the other people that come through.
I see what you're saying.
Just to compare it, because I'm always interested in, as musicians or artists or whatever, is there, like, kind of a common thread of, like, we picked up music and that became our passion, and that's what we are. That's who we are. That's what we do. Is there something that is out in the universe somewhere that, like, we picked up and that's why we are what we are? Because other people have no interest in doing it. You know what I mean? No, some people just like, no, I'd have no interest of ever playing an instrument. That's not my thing. So I'm trying to see if, like, certain questions, it's like there's a common denominator somewhere.
Yeah, like what are we all, you know, strung together through by, like, threaded together, you know?
So first musical memory that you remember.
That's a good question. I kind of grew up with my mom singing around the house a lot, so I think, like, one of the first ones I have is my mom singing to, like, Aretha Franklin.
Nice.
And Tower of Power. That was, like, her
even
jam.
Better. My mother's definitely never heard What Is Hip, you know?
Fun fact, I got to take my dad to see Tower of Power. He never listened to that band before, even after, like, dating my mom and stuff. So he got to see David Garibaldi up close and just got his head
because that's what happens when you watch David play.
So I'd say her singing and stuff like that.
Yep.
My dad plays drums too. He didn't really, like, play while I was growing up. He kind of took a break from it, but he did, like, leave his drums for me at my apartment. So I'd, like, hit on him a little bit, you know, and, like, me and my sister would kind of tap around on him like kids, you know, do, and then kind of went on the back burner for a little while. So probably did that when I was about 4.
Yeah. Now, have you played any other instruments, or was it like, did you do something and then hit drums, or was it, you know, you kind of played around with the drums and then at some point the drum bug kicked in and you were like, I'm doing this? Because I did. I mean, I've said it on other episodes. I started with violin, then saxophone, and then 5th grade was like, I heard the drummers playing and we sat right in front of them. I'm like, oh no, I'm doing that. This is way cooler than saxophone.
I started, like, singing in like, you know, elementary school for, like, functions and, like, all that stuff and the stuff they make kids do. The first instrument, so I guess the voice is my first instrument in a way. Never stuck with it at all, but that's kind of what I first did musically. And then I also had a violin guy come to my school, and I got a violin from my sister's friend because she didn't want to take lessons anymore.
Yep.
And it was way too big, and I couldn't play it. And I was like, I remember it was so uncomfortable, and the only thing I really remember from that is the guy explaining how to hold the bow.
Yes.
And stuff like that, and I might have did that.
From what I remember, you have great technique.
For maybe a month. And then after that, went on the back burner a little bit. I really liked to do, like, karaoke when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I do that, and at like, family parties and stuff, and the adults would get all like amped up that I was singing like AC/DC and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I picked up guitar when I was probably about 10 or 11-ish. And I had like this busted acoustic. My aunt played like acoustic guitars, like campfire style, camp counselor, and had all songs like that. So I started playing on this busted guitar, and then I remember that I wanted like a real guitar, because it was kind of like a child's guitar from like Toys R Us or something. Yeah. So at the time I was doing a lot of skateboarding, and I'd go to these skateboard camps out in Springfield. And when I got interested in guitar, I was like, instead of going to skateboard camp, can I get a guitar instead? Because I want to like learn and teach myself how to do this. And I got my first guitar at Falsetti's. Yeah. Took a couple lessons for a little bit with an instructor there, and I don't know. I feel like taking lessons kind of made me a little uninterested in it, because it was so regimented, and I feel like I wasn't really getting like how to play rather than just like pick a Metallica song and we're gonna like learn songs the entire time. I was like, well, I kind of don't know any of the notes on this guitar, But I didn't really know how to express that. Yep. So.
And you were what, like 10? You said there?
Yeah, I was 10 like or 11. 10 or 11.
Because I know some of my younger students, like it's the same thing. They just don't know how to either vocalize it, or they're afraid to say like what they really want to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's a common thing with kids, of being like, just I'm gonna do whatever this person tells me, because. I remember my mother, like, when I took something, she's like, you better pay attention and you better listen, because this person's taking their time to, like, try and teach you this instrument. So I think I was afraid to be like, but I want to, I was like, whatever, yes, sir, whatever we're doing, great.
I was a very hard-headed child. Yeah. That, like, if I couldn't see a reason behind learning something.
Then I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it. Yeah. I mean, I'm still kind of that way in a way. But.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I feel like that gives me the ability to hyperfixate on the things that I do want to learn, So around that time, drums became the thing that I wanted to hyperfixate on.
And how did that come about?
I had drums in my living room.
Yeah. So they're always kind of there.
Yeah. Then at the time, the person my mom was dating, like my stepdad, was like, oh, like you should play those drums finally. And he played drums a little bit. He was like an 80s like hair metal guy. Nice. He's like, I bought a set of drums from Scott Rockenfield of Queensryche.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I love those Tama Grand Stars or whatever they were. And he spent a bunch of money on them, but he couldn't play. Yeah. So, I mean, he showed me like the one beat he knew how to play, which is pretty cool. But from there, I kind of ran with it and listened to a lot of records. I always kind of listened to a lot of music growing up and was exposed to all different types of music. So I think like some of my earliest songs I started playing along to were CCR.
Oh yeah,
Creedence Clearwater Revival was like my favorite thing. Yeah, I was like 12 or 13, and then like after that I found the Who. Yep. And I got like real deep into the Who for a little while.
But Doug Clifford couldn't have been a better teacher. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's when I took lessons with Sean Pelton, I was asking him, I'm like, okay, like what should I be listening to for stuff? Mm-hmm. And he's like, if you want to do pop stuff and you want to play songs, he's like, listen to Rolling Stones, listen to Charlie Watts, listen to Doug Clifford from CCR, and I listened to CCR growing up. But I never fixated on the drum parts per se, because as a high school player, I think I was like, yeah, I can play that. That's not Rush. You know what I mean? These parts are easy. Yeah. But then when you go back and you start dissecting the sound of it and what he's doing, and then it's a whole different ball game.
Hard, man.
Yeah. But that's awesome that you kind of started with like a CCR. You started with a great drummer.
Yeah. And then like at that time, like I really loved metal music and stuff like that. So I was like huge into like the first 4 records of Metallica, and I was like, oh, I want to get a double bass pedal. So for like a birthday or something, I got a double bass drum pedal and started learning like One by Metallica and like doing all that kind of stuff. And I was like into Pantera and Megadeth and all that kind of stuff. So I had like a little stint of playing like metal stuff and trying to get into double bass a little bit. So by the time I got to high school, I could play along to like records and stuff. It wasn't, I'd play along to it. I wouldn't like play the parts though.
Yeah, you just, you'd play what you were hearing or what you thought should be there.
Yeah. And I mean, as I internalized a lot of the stuff I'd play along to though, in a way. So like those, like some of those Metallica songs are like ingrained in my memory because I've had like random people at like open mics and things be like, oh, let's play this Metallica song. And I'm like, all right, Seek and Destroy. Here we go. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe I even remembered part of that, you know?
Well, when Steve from Rock 201 was looking for somebody, he's like, can you do this? It's in Westfield. I'm like, dude, I have a rehearsal. Like I'm leaving. I think I was leaving for Florida or something. And I was like, it's a rehearsal. I can't miss it. Like we're going out the next day.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
And he's like, well, who do you recommend? I go, call Kade. He goes, so who the hell's Kade? So what's funny is he had another gig. This was probably like 10 years ago. Same thing. I need you to play this. I go, I can't play it. So he's like, well, who can you recommend? I go, try this guy. No, he's not available. I go, try, Lincoln Hubley.
Oh, I know Lincoln.
So he's like, who is this guy? It's a New Hampshire number. Like, who is? I go, just call him. I said, Joe Fitzpatrick recommended him. So if Joe recommends him, he's going to be fine. So he called me the next day. That guy was awesome. He goes, thanks for recommending me.
Sing all the Eagles parts.
And, yeah, right. And then he called me the next day when you played that gig with him. He goes, dude, thank you so much. Kade was perfect. Like, because I don't know if you guys were. I think he just sent you a song list, right?
Yeah. I don't know. You didn't look on the website, and I was like, okay, I played like there's like 5 songs here that I haven't played before out of like 100. You know, so
no, he was very thankful that I recommended you for that gig.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a cool. It was like a car show or something. Yeah, It was a good time.
Yep. So, did you take lessons drum wise, or you just kind of picked it up and ran with it?
I picked it up and ran with it from the time I was like 11 and a half, 12 to about 16 and a half. My aunt was like, you should maybe think about like taking drum lessons. We got the community music school in Springfield because by this time I already moved out here, so I started taking lessons with Ricky Marshall.
Oh yeah, I know Ricky.
So I did that for a little while, and I remember I brought in I got like a Led Zeppelin transcription book and was like, all right, let's kind of go through some of this stuff, and we were working on some of it, and he was helping me with my reading a little bit and showed me how to apply some double strokes to the kit.
Yep.
Because he's real good at that. And did that for a little while. When I was there, I also met Jason Arnold.
Yep.
And even though I didn't take lessons with Jason, he kind of mentored me throughout the years.
Yep.
I mean, he still does. I still kind of go to him with questions and stuff sometimes.
So you clearly had some good mentors.
Yeah,
when you were taking lessons and getting mentorship from people. I mean, those just Ricky Marshall and Jason. Because I took I think one lesson with Billy Arnold when I was in high school.
Oh wow!
Because he was playing with like Ted Levine.
Oh, I know Ted.
and that was like it was like they always had a quartet. And I remember like he was the first when I got into jazz. It was like he was the drummer around here that we were like, that dude's the best ever. Like, so I think I took a lesson with him in Springfield when I was in high school. I don't know. Is he related to Jason? Are they completely?
Jason's his son.
So it is his son. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure. I think I asked someone. They're like, I don't know. It might be like his uncle or something. So that's his son.
Yeah.
The Arnold line is clearly doing well.
Yeah. And I started going out to, I don't know if you know Steve Piper.
Yes.
Yeah, so I started going out to Steve Piper's Blues Jam when I was like 16 around then. And
now, where was that? Was that the one at the Southwick Inn, or was
that was at the Southwick Inn, and
which I think he still does.
He still does that
at Thursday nights.
This is when it was like the blues jam on Sundays or whatever. But I'd go there and I'd play my 3 songs, and I can play a shuffle. Oh, I can do a funky thing or whatever. And I started learning all this like blues repertoire. And after every like set of 3 songs or whatever, however they do the open mic thing, Jason would come up to me and be like, "Man, I like what you're doing here. You're doing the feel good, but like, check out a 1-drop. Like, listen to like the reggae thing's almost there, but it's like, check this out instead." Or like, try to separate the dynamics between the sections of the verse and the chorus, and go to the ride of the ride cymbal bell. And he had all these like real insightful tip things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That I picked up along the way. So I think I learned a lot about like song stuff from Jason through his mentorship. I never really took lessons from him in a practice room, but I think I got all the lessons.
And that's great. Like
outside of the room.
A lot of the stuff that I do with my students is when they get to the point where they can play and they can hold a beat, and they're like playing with a band or something, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about your hi-hats, because they don't think about their hi-hats. It's their left foot's a paperweight.
Yeah.
They're holding it down, and I'm like, okay, well, as you're building up, like, if you're doing the verse and then there's a pre-chorus and it's building, I said, open your hi-hats a little bit. Oh, and you see the light bulb come on of like, oh, okay, that makes it a little bit louder. And then you get to the chorus and go to the ride cymbal or go to the bell or whatever. So I try and give them little things like that, because I don't know. And again, I feel bad for all the teachers that had me, because either I was not paying attention or maybe they didn't show me that type of stuff. But that was like stuff with Sean Pelton and even Jim Fogarty at Zing.
Yeah.
When I would do something, there was a song where I was playing and like the and of 4 was open on the hi-hat.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, we stop the track. He goes, we're going to do it again. He goes, you're coming in. You're not coming all the way to 1.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? I go play it back. I'm like, oh my God. You're right. And it was those little tweaks and that little, it doesn't have to be a lesson. It's somebody just saying, try this or do that.
Yeah, and it totally influences like how you kind of approach song structure.
And it's awesome that he did that freely, of like, he was just trying to make you a better drummer.
Yeah.
Whereas you always hear like, the Eddie Van Halen stories of like, turning his back to the crowd so nobody could steal his licks at the beginning. I mean, I don't know how true it is.
Yeah.
But you always hear of certain musicians that are always, they don't want to give away too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas I try, and if like a drum student or a drummer comes up and they're like, how do you do that? I'm like, oh, let me show you, instead of like, oh, well, you got to take a lesson and it's, this amount, and you come on Tuesday and I'll show you how to do it, but I'm not going to show you the full thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I like when you hear stories of drummers just freely being like, that's great, but try this, and really trying to get you to the next level without looking for some kind of payback for it.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I feel like that's like the gift that we have amongst musicians is to try to, hold
just
each other up.
pass it along, right?
Hold it, we got to lift each other up.
Yeah. Yep.
A rising tide lifts all boats, you know?
And there's always, we all have a little competitive nature in us.
A little bit, yeah.
Because you want to play good, and you want your band to play good. I mean, that was like, like in high school, and you had the battle of the bands or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like, we're going to take this
tight.
band down.
Yeah. We got to be tight, you know?
Yeah. You'd show up and you'd size up the drummers. Oh, what kind of kits he got? All right.
Oh, he got a rack. I'm doomed.
Yeah, right. That guy's got all 27 toms with him. Cool. So you did the lessons. Now, did you take lessons with anybody else after that?
I did. So, I went to HCC for music and did like classical percussion there for a few years. And that kind of, like, I did like high school band and marching band and all that kind of stuff. I did like a Tom Hannum mobile percussion seminar thing. And that got me into the whole like marching snare stuff. Good friend of mine, Ashton Reynolds, drummer around here, he's a Springfield guy, was like way into drum corps, and I just mesmerized by how Ashton could just like play stuff on the kit. His vocabulary and chops were like insane, and that kind of got me interested into like the DCI stuff and cadets and Blue Devils and all that kind of stuff, and checking that stuff out. So high school I did the mobile percussion seminar. Learned a bunch of stuff, made like friends that I still talk to, And after that, I did the college thing and did, classical percussion kind of stuff, snare drum, marimba. I'm not very good at marimba. A little bit of timpani.
I wasn't either.
I did learn a lot of stuff about like hand percussion though, like congas and bongos. I'm not like great at any of those things, but I learned
the basics
and how to get different patterns, and then just listen to that in music, and listening to like, Giovanni Hidalgo and Carl Peraza of Santana and Tito Puente and like just all that kind of stuff to try to get into like the actual language of those instruments.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, because timbales is like a completely foreign instrument. Yeah. When I hear people play and I'm like trying to figure out the rhythms and the stickings and what they're doing, I'm like, man, that is a definite different language. To see somebody that's really good at timbales play, it's just like, whoa, like I definitely cannot do that for sure.
You see them do the kick drum thing and they're standing up and you're like, what is even going on? And they're cascara patterns on the side of the shells and stuff. And open and close note. It's like kind of like congas too at the same time. It's really such a special thing. Yeah. So that kind of grew my my interest in wanting to study more. So I got in touch through Jazz in July at UMass.
Yeah.
With Bob Weiner.
Yep.
Who wrote those books?
The Afro-Cuban books and stuff. Yeah. Yep. I've got those.
And he's a local guy. And
is he really? I didn't know that.
He's in like Northampton actually. Wow. He used to be in Amherst when I took lessons with him. But we did like straight ahead stuff, and he had me working out of the John Riley book and getting my comping together. Working on a lot of independent stuff. We worked on some groove stuff. I've recorded a lot of these lessons, which I'm grateful I did. Some Afro-Cuban stuff, a little bit of Brazilian stuff, and talk about the different, rhythms that they play and what certain parts like the surdo and stuff like that. So we kind of explored that, and then kind of talked about, towards the end, we started talking about free jazz and playing free and, all types of like, good life questions to get along the way of like playing professionally and like, what to do on tour and being on gig and like what happens when they pay you in fake money and, different situations of like how to kind of be a musician. So I think Bob really is a big mentor for me, and he has just the best stories of experiencing life playing drums. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. I had no idea that he was local. But I definitely in college worked through those books, and anytime my students are like, oh, we've got a thing, and my band director needs me to like figure out an Afro-Cuban groove. I'm like, I got you, kid. It's not gonna be easy, but like, here's the different patterns. I go start with this, add this, and we'll just try and figure out how much you can get before the jazz band concert. Because sometimes they're like, yeah, no, it's not gonna happen, dude. Like, what can I do to dumb it down, and we'll figure out something to do. But yeah, those books are great.
Big thing of his teaching is listening and like checking people out and like listening to the lineage of the instrument, because the drum set is an American instrument.
Yeah.
All the parts come from different places in the world, just like, everybody here in this country. So, and how things came to be and influenced by things of their time. So, going all the way back to double drumming with just kick drum and snare drum, and then playing early swing and looking at like, Chick Webb and all that kind of stuff, and going through the jazz into, early rock and roll and all types of stuff like that, and seeing how it progresses. So that was like a really important thing for me, because Bob's I believe he has a master's in anthromusicology. So a lot of what he knows about like music from all over the world is where rhythms get traced to different places by, migration of people.
Yep.
So understanding those rhythms helps understand part of those cultures.
Yeah.
So it's cool to get that kind of like, that's where one of those things, how I was saying, like, I don't really like to learn things unless I see
a purpose,
a purpose of them. That's one of the biggest things I found, purpose in why we play, and also connecting with people when we get to the stage.
Yep. Nice. So it sounds like you had a good group of mentors to guide you in different aspects of stuff. And definitely, like you were saying, with the lineage is a huge thing. Because when I went to Hart, and I went in as classical percussion.
Oh, wow.
And I was like a year and a half in, and I still remember we had an elevator shaft that was, decommissioned, and that's where the marimbas, there was like a big, 5-octave marimba, and I think there was some timpani in there. And you'd get the key to the elevator shaft, and I'm working on a piece for like the spring recital. Mm-hmm. And I just remember stopping, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. I'm like, this isn't what I want to do. I'm like, I want to play drum set.
Yeah.
And I knew all along I wanted to play drum set. And I think, to be brutally honest, like, Clark Siebold?
Yeah.
So Clark and I went to high school together. We were like the only drummers that went from like 5th grade all the way through high school playing drums. Like everybody slowly dropped off on the wayside. So Clark was a fantastic drummer. I mean, the kid, when he started like in middle school, the band director gave him Buddy Rich and he was off to the races.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was more into like, the hair, I was, rather like learn Kickstart Your Heart than, Nutville or whatever by, Buddy Rich band. So yeah, Rat. So Clark would get a lot of like, he was the main jazz band drummer. If they had like the musicals, he was the drummer. And I remember thinking, like, if I'm going to do something, like, I need to probably focus more on the percussion side, because he's always going to get the drum set parts in the school stuff. So how can I get important parts? I'm like, all right, so I'm going to learn timpani. I'm going to learn marimba. So then when I went to college, it was like, well, I can still do drum set. I was in a ska band playing, so I was like still playing every weekend. But I'm like, I'm going to do the classical percussion stuff. And in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll end up in a symphony orchestra. And I'll probably, teach at a college or somewhere. And then I just remember getting to that point, and it was just somebody lifted the sheet, and I was like, yeah, this is not what I want to do. I'm not having any fun doing this. I'm absolutely miserable. And I switched over to the jazz department because I was like, well, I love this college. And I remember talking to the professor. He's like, well, you gotta talk to the jazz guys. You got to make sure that there's a spot for you. You got to take the audition. I'm like, great, I'm going to do it. So I got into the jazz department, and it was like, I missed the first year of Jackie McLean, so he was, So he had his history class. So as a freshman, you took his history class and you went through the lineage of African music, and then, the Dixieland stuff and second line stuff. And then it became like the New Orleans, the heritage, stuff.
And then big band swing and to bebop and hard bop and the cool and
And I never had, so when I went in, I took it, I was like a year behind. So I had to add like all these extra classes that I missed as a freshman. So I had to take some of the stuff like as I was like going into my 3rd year, and I was trying to catch up to all the, the first 2 years of stuff that was going on. And you go through the lineage of everything. And of course, like, me getting into jazz, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to start with Tony Williams. Tony Williams and Elvin. That's a good
starting point.
It's a good place to start. But I did it backwards of like going to those guys and then going backwards and realizing the lineage of how these guys, studied with these guys, and Tony Williams was checking this guy out, and then back down
Alan
the road.
Dawson, then
Yep. So I jumped into the deep end with no swimmies of like, oh, no, I want to learn Tony Williams right away. Which I think was good because it forced me to get better faster, I think.
Yeah.
Because it was like I was trying to play that stuff. But I remember for hours being in my apartment in Hartford with the headphones on, just listening to his ride cymbal. Yeah. Eyes closed, dark room, listening to the, the Lincoln Center one. I don't know if it's Four and More.
Oh yeah.
You know, the double of the live album from Lincoln
his
Center.
late '80s thing.
Yeah.
Or
no, it was with Miles.
With Miles.
So it was the quintet. And it
Carnegie
was
Hall.
Yeah, it was the Carnegie Hall. Yes. But I remember it was the two CDs, you know, and I would put it on, and the first CD is a little bit slower. Yeah. You know, and then like the second album, the second CD is just burning the whole way through.
There's like Stella by Starlight on that one. Miles is like going for a note like right when he starts, and it's like super slow ballad, and this guy in the back goes, yeah! Just like totally loses his fucking loses his shit. It's great.
Yeah, but I remember talking. So Jackie McLean was the one that found Tony Williams.
Yeah, he
was in Boston, showed up at a gig. And this kid is setting the drum set up, and he goes, "Hey man, I'm Jackie McLean." He goes, "Oh, I know who you are." He goes, "I'm really excited to play with you tonight." He goes, "Yeah, whatever, kid. Is your father the house drummer?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "No, I'm gonna be playing with you." He goes, "No, seriously, man. Like, I don't have time to fool around. Where's the band?" He goes, "They're coming." He goes, "I'm the drummer." He's like, "Okay." So he's like, "What?" You know, figuring like his dad's gonna come walking in or whatever. This kid's just pulling my leg, and he said we went into rehearsal, you know, like a couple hours before the gig just to run through my tunes, and he goes, I was like, my jaw was on the ground, like,
who is this little motherfucker?
Yeah. So he went, like, that night was the story that we got to Tony Williams' mother's house and said, "Listen, I'm Jackie McLean. I want to take Tony to New York. I've got our son, Renee. You know, he's about, you know, Tony's age, might have been a little bit younger, but like, I will take him. I will personally take him under my wing. He's going to live. You can call my wife. Yeah. She can set everything up. Like, you know, but this kid is special."
Yeah.
And he went down and he called Miles. He goes, "Hey man, you got to hear this drummer I got." So he came down, and Miles, I guess after the gig, comes up and he's like, "Hey man, I'm going to steal your drummer." And he's like, yeah. And he goes 2 weeks later, Tony's like, "Hey, Mr. McLean, I really appreciate everything, but like, Miles asked me to like be his drummer." He's like, "Man, that motherfucker!" Like he goes, you know, Miles is saying it, and a little part of me is like, "Man, is Miles serious?" But he goes, "Miles would always try and, you know, joke with you." And he's like, you know, just he's impressed with this, you know, this young kid coming up. And goes 2 weeks later, Tony's with Miles. Yeah. But that, you know, so to hear the stories from Jackie about stuff like that. But yeah, my lineage was starting with like Tony Williams and then going backwards and forwards.
Yeah. When I went to Bob kind of in a similar fashion, and just like, I love Tony Williams and Elvin and like Jack DeJohnette and stuff like that. And we opened the books, you know, and started checking different people out, you know, Baby Dodds and all that kind of stuff, and listened to recordings and checked it out. So, I mean, I probably wouldn't know as much about that, how much that early foundation kind of influenced stuff. Yeah. If it wasn't for doing that, you know. So. Yeah. I remember I had to do like a phone interview before I started studying with Bob. He's like, "I want to get a feel for you." So.
No, that's
call
awesome.
Me up and see what you're like. What are you interested in? Like, are you into like checking out the music?
Yeah. No, that's great, because I'm sure somebody of his caliber doesn't just want to waste his time. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I need to know if you're serious or if you're just coming in here and you're not going to practice. I'd rather, if I have limited time, take on people that I know are going to do the work and doing it for the right reason rather
and be
than
into it.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, because I mean, he'd explain it, because it's at every level. You're gonna get people that are just like, "All right, just like load me up with the book stuff, and I'm just gonna go super quick and just chop away at it and be able to play." But like the deep level of understanding about the significance of stuff, you know, you're gonna really want to understand that, you know. So
awesome. So what was there a light bulb moment of seeing a band or an artist where you were like, "That's it right there"? That, you know, I always joke like with my students of, what was the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio? and he's like sitting. You see it as like a meme all the time. He's like sitting in his chair, and something comes on the TV or something. He's like, right there. I can't remember.
Like smoking a cigarette.
Yes, yeah. But like, that's like, did you have that moment of like seeing a band or a drummer or something that you were like, that's what I want to do?
Not, you would think so, but not really. I feel like, I don't know, from just hearing music and being so involved with it for like at such an early age, I kind of knew that I wanted to do it.
Yep.
I didn't get to see a lot of live music when I was a kid, so I saw my mom sing in church a little bit, and my dad played drums maybe a handful of times ever in like my adolescence, so like, I don't know. It was mostly me, like, really just wanting to play because I was having a good time.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of really drove me because it made me feel, I don't know, like I had a voice that I could, like, start to explore with, you know? And that was an empowering thing for me. And that's what made me want to stick with playing so much. But, like, I mean, along the way and seeing amazing concerts and stuff like that have definitely only pushed that farther.
Keep the fire going. Absolutely.
Keep the fire like really burning hot, you know?
I remember because I didn't see a lot of music growing up either. I mean, you might see something at like, Stanley Park or Look Park or.
I saw like Three Dog Night when I was a kid, like at
I don't
the
remember.
fair.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing anything like that. But not that I can remember, but I remember it was either 8th grade or freshman year in high school, and I went to Riverside, and they had like 3 bands. If you like paid to get in to Riverside, you could go see whatever concert was there. And I remember seeing the Blushing Brides of the Rolling Stones tribute.
Yeah.
And I remember like just sitting in the bleachers with my buddy who lived down the street who played guitar. Mm-hmm. And he would come over and we'd jam and stuff. And I remember sitting next to him and looking over and going, I'm going to do that. That's what I want to do. And that was my light bulb moment because I was still into sports. It must have been 8th grade. Because like freshman year, I tried out for basketball and like didn't make it. And then I tried to lacrosse and I'm like, nope, this is a lot of running. This is not going to work. And I remember thinking like, music is what it's going to be. So it had to be 8th grade, but that was definitely a light bulb moment because I played and I enjoyed it, but I was still kind of like, oh, well, maybe I could play second base for the Red Sox or, I'll play point guard for the Celtics, in my 13-year-old head. But I remember seeing that concert and like the kick drum and the snare drum like coming through a big system, and I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's like all the sports things were like, that's going to take a backseat to doing drums.
Yeah.
That was my light bulb moment. And then like you said, the more concerts you see,
the more it fuels the fire.
Yep. And I think you need to see, clearly you want to see as much live music as possible. Yeah. Because that's where you learn stuff and meet people, and that's where those magic moments come from. Yeah, absolutely. Because I know for me, when you get into like that rut of life of like working and doing this and doing that, and then you go to that concert and you're like, I'm refreshed. My soul is refreshed. My musical batteries are filled up. Like there's nothing like, walking out of a concert being like, oh man, that was awesome.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Yep.
No, most of the concerts I do go to, I don't get to go to a lot because I'm working all the time. Yep. But I try to go to ones that like I really like leave feeling like inspired in a way. Like I want to see stuff done at like a real high level. I just want to have my mind be blown.
Yeah.
And then that's for like things that I like, the big concert events. And then I like to go see local friends play and stuff too, because that's also really
and that's
inspiring
hard
too.
Like you were saying, it's you want to go and support, but when you're playing, it's hard to go see your friends' bands play because you're always playing, right? that could be.
It helps in like Western Mass is an interesting music scene because it's kind of like all over the place. But sometimes you can get out of a gig and then like rush over to your buddies and check them out and whatever. So that's also like a real inspiring thing for me for seeing stuff.
Yeah,
I think I just got tickets to see Soul Live in June, so I'm like real stoked for that.
I saw that the only time I've seen them twice, but the first time I saw them was they were at University of Hartford for like our Spring Fest, and it was like they're playing and nobody really cared. It was, it was a tour stop, and it was a college gig. I'm sure they were getting paid well.
Oh, yeah.
But it was like we had a band, and we had a guy on Rhodes, bass, drums, and the girl sang and played. She played guitar and saxophone. It was Stephanie Reynolds' band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think we opened up for them. Like, we played earlier in the day, and like we're talking to them, and like we're just same thing. We're like, wow, this band's really good, and it's like people are like looking around, not the normal college kid could care less. It was like, when's the hip hop artist come on? But it was that I remember seeing them, and it was like, whoa, these guys are the real deal.
Yeah, they're going for it.
Yeah.
And then like Joe Russo's Almost Dead.
Yep.
Big fan of that band. Play so much Dead music. It's good to see it at like a high
level of that
level of improvisation. Because they kind of are on the edge. It's really a jazz band. They're just on the edge of their seat the whole time. And I mean, I like when concerts kind of take you for a journey. Yeah, that's what I like to go see.
Yep, nice. So this is a question that's come up. Your Zen moment of you're on stage and like everything is just hitting right. Like, do you have a certain moment or a couple moments where you're like, if I get struck by lightning leaving this gig, this was awesome. Yeah.
That's a good question. I've definitely had, I feel like a lot of them, they're kind of, they're not even all necessarily like big shows. It's more so about like just sometimes how everything was clicking. Like this past Halloween at Bishop's, I was playing with Bo Sasser on keys and my band Mojo Wagon, and that was just like a special night. I just remember like everything was just like really on. Yeah. There was people in there for sure to help it out, but that's like probably, there's been a lot of memories since then, but that's like a key one
that sticks out. Yeah.
That sticks out a lot. Playing the Strange Creek Festival, I played in the cabin a few times. And just the energy at like real late at night, you know what I mean? And people are in there like dancing and sweating, and it's like hypnotic. Yeah. I play a lot of like improvised music, and some of it is pretty like repetitive and hypnotic. Like I do like a Talking Heads band and stuff like that. So I think that there's a lot of those memories, so they're all real special in their own kind of way. I think that was probably one of the big ones that I remember.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I always like to try and get people's, because we all have them at some point where it was just, whether it was the crowd that you played for or, a connection with somebody, on stage, or it was like I got a chance to play with one of my heroes and we nailed it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Somebody came up on stage that you've always looked up to, and you're just like, holy crap, I just played that song. Like I remember, and I don't even know that it was a Zen moment, but a moment that like really stuck out was playing at Geraldine's in West Springfield. And I was playing with Richard Skye, and it was a Tuesday night, and Luther Johnson, I don't know if you know Luther, he used to like him and Rick and like Luther, Rick Marshall.
Was it Joe Salins?
Joe Salins. Like they all grew up together. Well, yeah, he was probably I'm almost positive he was in that band with them. Yeah. So he comes out, and I'd heard of him before, and somebody had said, oh, he used to have this Prince tribute, and he like nails it. So we're playing, and it's Tuesday night, and like Luther comes up and grabs one of Richard Skye's guitars, and some drunk lady's like, play Purple Rain, and I'm like, please, we ain't playing Purple Rain on a Tuesday night. And he busts into it. I'm like, holy shit, here we go. I'm like, we're playing Purple Rain on a Tuesday night at Geraldine's in front of like 7 people. And he freaking nailed it. And I remember like finishing, he's got the guitar solo and he's got the moves down. And I remember just looking at Richard Skye. I was like, holy shit. Like that's
the thing.
I just never thought that moment of a Tuesday night at Geraldine's playing Purple Rain could be like, almost like, a church moment where you're like, holy crap, like my head was blown because I'd heard of this guy before, but like he just nailed it. And I'd never played Purple Rain before. I'd heard it, But like we played it and we played the shit out of it, and I was like, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And it was like that moment still sticks in my head where like somebody asked me, like I'll have students like, what was like a cool moment in a bar? I'm like, we played Purple Rain on a Tuesday night for 7 people and we freaking nailed it. Nobody saw it, but it was awesome.
It was awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's nice when things come out better than expected, because there's always that. I feel like, you know, especially in music, you're like, oh, this is the show and we're going to play it. Da, 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 da. Like, it's nice that like we get like such awesome surprises.
Yeah.
And like being open to that. Like, it's a real special thing.
Yeah. So that leads into the next question. Weirdest or most surreal moment on stage?
Ooh. That's a good question. Most surreal moment.
Or just, you know, I mean, I guess is surreal and weird kind of the same thing? I'm not an English major. Like, you know,
I've had like instances where we're like in the middle of like a 15-minute long like Jerry Garcia band song or something like that, and we played the same line.
Yeah.
And everybody looks up and they're like,
did that just happen? Yeah.
Yeah, and there's stuff like that all the time. I don't know. That's a good question. I've had like,
or anybody walk in off the street like just wearing some kind of weird.
Oh, I've had like fights break out
yeah.
like in the middle of a song, like we're playing like Touch of Grey or something, you know, something peaceful and cheery, and like just fist fights and like I've had that kind of stuff happen. I was playing a gig last year and a guy had a heart attack and died.
Oh wow!
Right on the dance floor.
So that's while we were quite playing. A moment.
That was, yeah. I mean, when it happened, I was like, wow, that's a really beautiful way to go.
Yeah.
But it took like a few days for me to be like, I just saw.
Watch some dude die.
And then like paramedics do the thing, and like I just like witnessed that. So I guess that's probably the most surreal one.
Yeah. Now, what was actually, I was watching something, and oh man, it's a disco song, and somebody said they were doing a paramedic class. Oh, Staying Alive. Like like they said that's like
for the speed.
Yeah, that's supposed to be this. That's and I watched. I can't remember if I saw it on TV or I was talking. I think I was talking to a lady at work that's a paramedic, and she was talking about like doing the training. She goes, "Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Like you sing Staying Alive like while you're doing chest compressions." I'm like, okay, I guess it makes sense. So if anybody's watching and you are stuck having to do chest compressions, Staying Alive is, I guess, the proper
the number
speed.
one goal.
If you don't have rhythm or a beat, that could not, you know, maybe it won't work out. I just remember playing a gig. We were in Connecticut on the shore, and it was a 3-piece acoustic gig, and it was just, this place was just a weird place to play. It was like on the water, and it was like we played, but then it was like, let's say we play 6 to 9, and like by 9:15 it was like a nightclub, and the inside was like so it was like, you know, we're playing acoustic tunes out on the deck, and then you're trying to load out, and it's like, you know, all these drunk college kids are coming in, and they could care less that we were out on the deck playing. But we're watching one of these guys, and he's wasted, and we're up on the deck, and there's like a parking lot below, and it was like probably 12 steps this way and 12 steps coming like the opposite way. So kind of like an L shape. And I'm looking, and we're looking at our watches. We're like, all right, we're almost done. This is almost done. And we see this guy walk past us, and he goes towards the steps. And the bass player and I like lock eyes, and we follow the guy. He took a shitter down all 12 steps and laid there. And then he got up, and we were looking at each other like, oh my God, that guy just went down those 12 steps, and then he got up and he went down the other 12 the same way. And that was like, you know, one of the weirdest things where we just burst out laughing, and we just, because we both saw it happen at the same time. But that's like one of those things, again, like memories, weird memories. Like I'll probably have dementia and be in the nursing home and I'll be like, you should have seen this time when the dude took a shitter down the steps.
You should have seen this guy's 12-step program.
Yeah, oh yeah. He had a full, yeah. That's, yeah. I hope he went into it after that. Like we thought when he went down that he wasn't getting back up. We're like thinking this guy broke his neck. Yeah. And he got up and he kind of wobbled and then he fell down the next 12 steps. But that was, I guess for me, that was like one of those weird moments that sticks in my head of like, wow, we just saw some dude like, I don't know how he's alive. I'm guessing because he was drunk and just, like tumbled and was numb enough. All right. So what about, and I'm sure there's a bunch, but is there any concert or masterclass or something where, you're talking about like a high level of playing where your face melted? You saw a concert or you saw a drummer or a drum clinic and you were just like, whoa. Doesn't have to be a drummer. Could be a guitar player or singer
or
musical anything. Yeah.
Vessel.
Yeah. A musical vessel that you were like, that's at another level. Like that's special right there. And maybe it was when you were younger and, as we're younger and like, I always tell my students it's the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Like when you see somebody do these fills and you're like, that's impossible. Like that's the most amazing fill. And then you get older and somebody transcribes it. You're like, oh, it's sextuplets. It's a linear sextuplet thing.
Yeah.
But like, are there moments where whether it's a kid or older, where you were like, whoa?
I was still in college. I went to see Chick Corea in the Vigil at Infinity Theater in Hartford.
Yep.
And I sat behind Marcus Gilmore, and I never saw Marcus Gilmore before. I read about him a little bit, being like Roy Haynes' grandson and stuff.
Yep.
I was like, that was really cool, but like that was one of those concerts. I like brought my girlfriend at the time to it. She's like trying to talk to me. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Let me have this.
Let me have this.
But like that was just one of those moments where I don't know, just the whole band, like the guitar player and all that stuff. But Marcus Gilmore for sure. It was one of those shows where you kind of drive home without the radio on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your head's just in that space of like trying to conceptualize what you just saw.
Yeah. That was one of those concerts for sure. I saw definitely I've seen Bo Sasser do this on Funk Nights too, who's a local guy that I feel very fortunate to be able to play with, who's been a great mentor to me. But some of the stuff that he's played with, like my buddy Colin on drums, just like local stuff, like absolutely just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I still watch him and from like over the kit or even with other people, and I'm just like in disbelief all the time of like playing bass lines that are like immaculate, you know what I mean, and being able to like do it together. And the idea like where he starts like laughing, where you're like laughing that it's happening, that's another one of those concerts. I saw Brian Blade in the Fellowship. And I didn't know who Brian Blade was.
Yeah.
It was at the Newport Jazz Festival. It was like I just got there.
Yeah.
It was like my first show ever at the Newport Jazz Festival.
Now, was that like, do you remember which album what was it, like the first album that they put out?
I believe they were touring the first album.
Yeah. I saw him at, what's the one in Boston right off is it the Doubletree? I don't know if that's Scullers or Regatta Bar. It's right when you, like if you're getting off in Boston, like you're going, I think like to the Middle East where like Soldier Road is, or I think it's the Doubletree, like Hilton, and it's a jazz bar in there, and I think it's the Regatta Bar or Scullers. I'm sure if anybody's watching this, they're yelling and it's the Regatta Bar. But I remember going, I think, or no, it wasn't there. It was in Boston though. And we went to see him, and he had done the Kenny Garrett album with Coltrane.
Oh, wow.
And Nat Reeves was our professor. So we're walking towards the bathrooms, and I see Brian Blade walk into the dressing room. So my buddy Joe's like, I go, come on, let's go. So we walk in and they're like, you know, like hanging out and talking to people and they're looking at us like, who are these freaking kids? You know, so I walk in, I go, hey, you know, because I was always told like as a kid, because I was like into baseball. Yeah. So you go to a baseball game and everyone's like, hey, Jose, Mark, like whoever your favorite player was, you're yelling the name. And I remember one guy said, if you call me by Mr. So-and-so, I'm more likely to come over and sign your autograph because you're giving me respect rather than just some kid yelling my name. Like you're, you know, so I remember saying, oh, Mr. Blade, you know, I just wanted to say hi. And I totally name dropped. I'm like, you know, Nat Reeves is, you know, our jazz professor at college. Oh man, how's Nat do? Come in here. Yeah, and we were in there for like 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And then we went out and he said to me, he goes, hey, my buddies were supposed to, like be here. They're not here. Do you want like, you know, tickets? Like where are your tickets? So we moved like right by the drums.
Oh, wow.
And I was the same thing. Like
watching Brian Blade is an experience because he's not like he doesn't play a bunch of crazy.
It's almost like, well,
he can.
Yeah.
But the thing he has is the thing he has.
It's feel and colors. That's when I think Brian Blade, it's feel and colors rather than like a technique or something. It's a flow.
It's beyond that.
Yeah,
it's like not a sticking in sight.
Yeah.
If you think about it, you know.
So that was at Newport. You had just walked in.
Yeah, I just walked in. Trying to think. There's been some other ones. I saw Terry Lynn Carrington play.
Yep.
She did a thing at Springfield Music School and did like a clinic and stuff. Dave Weckl. I got to see Dave Weckl play, and I did one of his classes with him, like his day intensive thing. So I got to play with Dave for 5 minutes.
So I get a call from the owner of the music store, who was Matt Garska's father.
Yeah, yeah.
And he goes, hey, I want Matt to go to the Weckl thing, but he's not old enough to drive yet. Will you drive? Because I was, you know, like I taught Matt, and he goes, I'll pay for your ticket to go to the Weckl. It was basically a master class. You just showed up with a practice pad.
And he gave you 16th notes and triplets.
Yeah. So we went to that, but it's funny because like Matt was like, I remember you took me to like the Dave Weckl thing. And I remember asking because I always loved Dave Weckl.
Yeah, he was my favorite of like the 80s fusion guys.
And I remember asking because he's like, well, does anybody have any, you know, questions and answer at the end? I go, hey, you know, Mr. Weckl, I'm playing in a cover band. And, you know, we're doing like 3 45-minute sets. And like, what would you suggest? You know, I play traditional grip, but I find like after, you know, all night, it's just, you know, I'm trying to build up strength and endurance. He's like, so like you're doing 3 sets, 45 minutes, just play match grip. Next question. I'm like, but just like, I felt like Dave Weckl kicked me in the balls.
Oh,
you know, instead of being like, okay, well, if you really want to play traditional grip, like this is what I would do. He goes, yeah, just play match grip. Next question. I was like, No, where did you
see him doing that?
Oh yeah. No, where did you see Weckl?
This is a Dynamic Percussion.
Okay.
In Manchester. That was the only time I ever went there.
Yeah. Was it at Dynamic or was it at like a hotel?
It was at Dynamic.
Okay, so this one was like at a hotel or something. Like they had like a conference room, and it was like I just remember they said bring practice pad and sticks, and it was good because it was right after his like double DVD. After he did the Freddie Gruber thing. Okay. So he was talking about the bounce and the molar technique and push
the drums up.
Which was kind of cool because I was trying to really get my traditional grip better. So it was I'd had the DVDs, so to actually go and see him do it, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then he would come around and be like, yeah, that's good. Try this and move a little bit forward on the stick, stuff like that.
Yeah, just all that like. I wish I went to more clinics. I mean, it's not too late. Yeah. But I feel like they're not as common anymore.
No. I wonder if it's just you've got to get it's like a tour. You know, you just got to get it routed the right way. And I had always wanted, of course, everybody wants to see Vinny Caliuta. Yeah. And I just watched a thing with John DeChristopher. He's got a podcast. Yeah, I've seen so they just did one on Freddie Gruber. And he talked about doing clinics. And he goes, I don't do clinics anymore because people would like yell at me to do stuff. And he's like, I just felt like, you know, somebody was just, like they wanted me to do this.
Like a circus.
Yeah,
monkey.
that's what he felt like. He's like, that's why I don't really do clinics anymore, because I can't go out and do what I want to do. I feel like people expect me to do this, or, hey, play 7 days again. How did you do that when you, he's like that. No, that's not what this clinic is about. Like, I don't want to just be like,
you should hear what
yell.
I have to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. And that's what he talked about. Like Freddie Gruber was, he goes, I never took a standard lesson with him. But like you said, with, all these mentors, it was hanging out with Freddie and like watching him play a little bit on the pad and like seeing him maybe talking to somebody at a lesson and being like, oh, all right, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And he goes, just hanging out with him, kind of the osmosis of pulling stuff in.
There's like this whole conspiracy theory out there that like does Freddie Gruber play drums because he's like the guru guy that like everybody's lessons are like a hang. He's like, I've never heard him play before.
Well, did you watch that episode with John DeCruz? You have to watch it. It's live from my drum room.
Yeah.
And all of these guys said we'd show up and we'd all have a lesson at 3:00. And he like hadn't started with anybody. He's like, hey, go down and I need this sandwich, but I want it on the onion bagel and do this. And then he'd start a lesson with somebody. But they said that was his testing you on how well you listened to directions.
Gotcha.
And then he wanted to like, then when you came back, it was like, okay, he got it right. So now I'm going to give him a little piece of information because he's listening.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, but I guess like he went up to Weckel and Weckel at first was like, yeah, you're just, this jive turkey's like, I'm not, I want nothing to do with him. And then somebody called him, they're like, dude, I took a look because Weckel saw somebody and he's like, dude, man, your technique's great. He goes, you got to call Freddie, man. I'm telling you, the guy knows his shit. Like he's a crazy old kook, but the dude actually knows like what he's talking about. But that's what they all said. It was like, they had Vinny, they had Adam, Nussbaum on there.
Oh, I just saw him at the Zildjian 400th anniversary concert. He was fantastic. He was the only guy that played brushes.
Oh, really? Out of all the guys that were there?
Maybe Novak did too.
Yeah.
But he was killing.
Yeah, it was funny that all of them said the same thing of like, you'd have to like pigeonhole him and be like, okay, Freddie, can we do something now? Show me something. And they're like, you would do a 2-hour hang and maybe get 10 minutes of like actual information. But they're like, it's Freddie. And that was just, you knew going into it.
Yeah. Similar cat is like Murray Spivak. Have you heard of that dude?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And like listening to, Wackerman talk about Spivak. Because a lot of the guys got I think Garibaldi got his hands in shape with that. And it's like a classical percussionist guy from Hollywood doing movie soundtracks and stuff. But like his American grip stuff is really fascinating. It's cool that we have like different gurus for different things,
Yeah.
The guy.
Yeah, the guy. All right, so let's do the band. I mean, there's probably a million bands that you're in. I'll put like the links up. Give me a couple of like the things that you're doing now that are like your main couple gigs that you're doing all the time.
I do Bella's Bartok. I play drums for a band called Bella's Bartok out of Amherst, Massachusetts, and we tour and play, kind of like circus punk, Balkan, Eastern European, like punk rock, and we other stuff too, like songs and stuff. But it definitely has a European flavor to it.
So, folks, if you've never seen them, go on to either YouTube or I think I pulled it right off of like the Facebook page of something. It's very, very cool stuff.
Great show.
Yeah.
It's a good time. I do that. I do a Talking Heads tribute band called Slippery People.
Yep.
And we play in the area every few months. It's not a super busy project, so hop on that when you can. We got some really awesome musicians in the area that I kind of threw together. Called some friends because I wanted to play some Talking Heads and wanted to do it at Bishop's one night. I was like, I want to play this music. Who can do these parts and like plays like that and wants to play songs like this that are real like structured and kind of, it's almost like Afrobeaty with the layering and stuff like that. So I called some friends and then that blossomed, and then they called some of their friends in, and we have a really awesome band that has a lot of fun. I do a band called Mojo Wagon. We play Bishop's Funk Nights usually, and we play other gigs outside of.
And that's Wednesday night usually at Bishop's is Funk Night?
Yeah, I do the Funk Nights, and then I do the Grateful Dead Nights on Tuesdays. Mojo Wagon went down. We kind of started in Key West, Florida. We were kind of thrown together for a project to go do that at this bar called the Green Parrot.
Yep.
Recommend checking it out if you're ever down in Key West.
Buddy I went to high school with lived down there for a while, working at a restaurant, and he just was like, I could not. That's my dream place.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if he moved back financial reasons or I know it's super expensive, but Key West is. I've never been. My wife's got a friend that lives down there, and you gotta come. You can stay with me.
Yeah. I have a drummer pal that I met on the road, and he lives in Key West. He's like, man, this is one of the few places I've been to in the country that a musician can gig 7 days a week and pay your bills.
Yeah.
You can, if you're playing, you can play there and make a living.
Yep.
That's what you want to do. So we started playing a bunch of songs, then we came back and we're like, let's do funk nights, and got real tight and have been having a real good time. I do some Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia band stuff. I have a Jerry Garcia band project with I kind of throw it together. I call whoever's around. Usually it's me and my buddy Parker on organ. And then we'll get a bass player and our Jerry guy. We switch it up sometimes.
Yeah.
And this band's called Black Sweatpants, so it's kind of changes. Sometimes we get our buddy Jay Fairs, who's online as Jerry Tone Store. He builds custom guitars for people, but he has a YouTube channel and Instagram, and he's real crushing. Great singer, great guitar player. So
and that's Black Sweatpants.
Yeah, and we just go up there and we kind of just call songs off. Yeah. Sometimes we go up there with the set list, but that band's about locking into a groove and then exploring stuff. So have a good time.
Nice. There used to be a band called the Sweatpant Boners. I don't know if you ever remember them. This was probably late 90s, early 2000s. I just remember the Valley Advocate.
The gray sweatpants.
you would just see the ads for who's playing where, and it'd be
Sweatpants
downstairs Pearl Street, Sweatpant Boners. I was like, that's the coolest name. That was the coolest name for a band.
Sounds like the perfect.
So if anybody's watching this and knows members of the Sweatpant Boners, just put it in the comments, because I don't remember who was in the band. And I'm wondering if it's musicians that I'm I remember that guy, but I forgot he was in Sweatpant Boners.
That's the perfect venue for them. Pearl Street downstairs.
Yep. Now you said do you still play with Lexi at all?
I do play with Lexi. So we have a gig coming up in a couple weeks at the Women's Club of Westfield, and we're doing our Allman Brothers tribute again.
Nice.
This band started because I played in Weeds and the Wonder Twins, and another band, Organ Transplant, with the guitar player that she plays with in her band. So we kind of joined forces to do a Derek and the Dominoes tribute, of all things. So that was a real treat, getting into Jim Gordon's playing, and Carl Rattle, the bass player there, who plays the perfect bass lines for anything. And then from there, I've double drummed with my friend Kevin Mason, who's a Springfield cat. And out of all the double drumming I've done, me and him are just so locked in. And then we got our buddy Kenny Lynch, who's lives around here and played Southern Rain and with his girlfriend Allie and stuff. So we put together this band and did a tribute to Live at the Fillmore East.
Yep. That album's all right.
Yeah, I heard it's a good one.
Yeah.
I had the idea. I was like, we're gonna recreate the picture and everything and do that, and we had an amazing show when we played. So we decided to do it again and add a few more songs, and we're doing it in Westfield on the 19th. Which is an early Sunday show.
Oh, we're gonna have to check that out. Yep. Chris Jensen, who was one of our sax professors, played with when we were in college. It was people were, getting ready for summer tours, and he was talking, and we, blah, 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 blah. And we're like, hey, what's Chris talking about? They're like, oh, he just landed the Dickie Betts gig. So he played with Dickie for a couple summers, I think.
What is it? Something Southern, Great Southern? Maybe one of those bands. One of Dickie's bands.
I think it might have just been the Dickie Betts band.
Okay.
I'm not sure. This would have been I graduated 2000, so it was probably 98, 99. But he was psyched. He's like, this is great. This is awesome. Like, we're going on tour all summer. We got a lot of festivals. It's gonna be, as a sax player, you're doing jazz gigs, and he's like, this is gonna be like, I'm gonna get paid I'm gonna get paid all summer. It's gonna be great gigs. The musicians are, fantastic. He goes, I've loved the Allman Brothers. So I remember him being like super psyched to land that gig.
Yeah, I love playing that music. Jeff Turcotte, another local drummer, had me play with his Allman Brothers band when his son Joel, who's a friend of mine that I went to college with.
I taught Joel a couple lessons too.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Joel moved away to Austin, so I did some gigs with them, filling in for that, and that learned a bunch of songs and all the repertoire, and had a great time playing with Jeff. So
yeah, Jeff bought a snare drum off me a couple weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we were talking about. I think I was like just getting ready to do the first episode. And I think I said to him, like, we have to get you on the show. Like, maybe what I'll try and do is if Joel's around, is have him and Jeff come in and do it, and then do like a double drumming thing.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Watching them double drum is a trip because it's like father and son thing. I just got to play with my dad for the first time last year. Yep. Which is real cool on one of my Grateful Dead gigs.
I saw you post a picture that he bought you're like, oh, Dad just got a real kit or something.
Yeah, he went to Wood and Weather down in South Hadley there, and Joe took care of him, and we got him a 72 Rogers. Yep. I was like, Dad just bought his first black Cadillac. Yeah. That thing, he got a great set of drums. He's very happy.
Nice. So who are you going? You said you're leaving tomorrow on tour. Who are you going on tour with? Who's this round?
Bartok.
Yep.
We're going to be going down to North Carolina and going to Virginia, D.C., and working our way back up, and then doing some East Coast dates. Nice. Which is really cool. I like going to like North Carolina and kind of far. Yeah. Like a great barbecue. Yeah. I bet pizza too.
Yeah. I don't know. You have to send me some pictures for the road.
I will.
You know what? Do that, and I will put them up on the Instagram and stuff. Cade's Pizza pics.
Yeah, we're going to be in Detroit in October, so I'll have to get some real Detroit pizza.
Yeah, please do. Because
I'll find the place.
Yeah. Like, maybe if you get a chance, when you're on tour, sometimes it's
tricky.
Yeah, depending on what your schedule is and what's open at the time and when you're waking up. And,
we like food, though.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, maybe find somebody and just say, hey, I'm from out east. Like, what's the place that we got to go to?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it has to be like a neighborhood spot.
Yeah. All right, so I put 2 drummers down. Let's do that because there's, I'm sure, a million. 2 drummers, alive or dead, that you could sit down and eat pizza with.
That I'd like want to, or that I feel like I'd connect with, like
anyone. Like let's say one that you think you would connect with, and one that you're just like, I've always wanted to meet this person.
I'd probably say Bill Kreutzmann.
Yep.
The Grateful Dead. I feel like he'd have a lot of really good stories. It'd be a real good hang.
I'm sure there's some stories.
I read his book. His book is very good. If you get a chance to read it.
And I think he played Noble and Cooley for a while,
He
right?
still does.
Does he still do?
Yeah.
No, does he play the folk? He plays a folk kit, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know if he did.
Mickey plays like half of one, and then the percussion stuff. And then, what were our options again?
Alive or dead. So it could be somebody, like, doesn't have to be.
Billy for the hang, for sure.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. I want to say John Fishman for, like, the brain pickiness. I bet he has some really good stories, too. Those are my 2 choices.
Those are the 2 choices. Those are 2 good choices. I've got a million because I was thinking in my head, well, who would I say?
Yeah, there's a lot of contenders in my brain. I was like, Dom Famularo would be a great one,
So Dom is coming up in our closing of the the episode. But I always think that I always have wanted to meet Vinny. But when I listen to his podcast, he just uses big words. And I think he might confuse me.
Yeah.
Like I'd sit down and I'd be like, dude, you're amazing, but I don't understand anything that you just said.
Yeah. He's an interesting guy. I've listened to some of his podcasts too, and Tal Wilkenfield has some funny stories. He's like
I'm sure.
on tour with him. He's like reading books and like doing finance and like doing weird.
Yeah. I can see him like pushing the glasses up.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever
with the smoke ripping
Yeah,
the butt and the sushi?
Yeah. So you saw that, heard the infamous story. Yeah.
The Steve Vai
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I watched that and I laughed because I could totally picture it in my head of him, absolutely doing that in the second and a half that he had to eat sushi and fix with one hand his glasses, do with the other. So, folks, if you don't know, go on YouTube and it's Steve. If you type in like Steve Vai, Vinny Colaiuta story or interview, it'll come up.
Frank Zappa stuff.
Yeah, Frank Zappa stuff. It's well worth. I think that one that I watched was maybe like 3 or 4 minutes. It was a quick thing, but if you're a musician and especially a drummer and like Vinny Colaiuta, you'll get a kick out of that.
Yeah, and then I feel like Billy Cobham would be a tough one, because you ever listen to any of like Billy Cobham's like clinics and stuff? You'll like ask him a question and he starts talking about like the birds and he just like
totally off topic,
totally like way off, like. But he's like Billy Cobham, you know what I mean? You're like, all right, we're here on this ride, you know. It's like, how'd you start playing drums? He's like, well, Brooklyn in 1963, and then I met this guy. It just, his stories go all over the place. Check it out sometime.
Yeah, no, I will. All right, so speaking of Dom, the way I like to end is the way he used to end the sessions. Your words of wisdom. Now, how old are you?
I'm 28.
Oh, shit, you're a baby. So in your 28 years, like, what are some words of wisdom or like a mantra or just something that you try and live by or that you try and put out there? Like, we've had people like Lou Scalzo up at Noble and Cooley was talking about, you got to stop and be present and smell the roses. And, and I always joke, I go, your words of wisdom could be like, don't piss into the wind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but in your 28 years, what's something that, because you've seen with COVID and things shutting down. And, I always tell my kids, like, the world when I was a kid, well, not a kid, but when 9/11 hit, the world changed. Mm-hmm. So everything was like that. You had before, pre 9/11 and after, and then people are going to think pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Yeah.
Like, you've gone through different things with the world changing and seeing shit like
9/11 and COVID.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Like, what's something that you could pass along as words of wisdom?
I think my biggest words of wisdom would be to don't take what we do as musicians for granted, because I think that our power as artists and individuals reach people in ways that are beyond our that we couldn't dream about or are beyond our expectations. Kind of how we were talking, like they're better than we could ever imagine. And for certain people, art and music and things in life, like this is a representation of life for people. You know what I mean? And how people interpret what we do and stuff is tied to their memories and what they feel. And they're always going to remember those things. I mean, we just talked for, an hour or two about like this concert that I saw and it changed my life, and stuff like that. So what we do has a lot of meaning. So don't let other things get in the way of discouraging you, from making art.
Yeah. Because
the business side can be really tough. And, we do this for fun and we do this to connect with people. So don't forget the root of it,
Yeah. I would say that's good words of wisdom.
Yeah.
For sure. No, I love ending with that because that's, again, I want to add, at the end, maybe I'll edit everything down of like 10 minutes of words of wisdoms from drummers eating pizza.
Oh,
cool. And just like, have that, or I'll you can sell that separate.
Yeah.
If you want to be smart people, you're going to buy my words of wisdom, Drummers Eating Pizza. All right, so that is the end of Drummers Eating Pizza, episode 4. Kade, thank you for coming in and eating some pizza. We're going to get you to play some drums. And we're going to add that in at the end of this episode. So don't shut this off. We're going to go into the studio. Kade's going to play some drums, and we will talk to you guys soon. Kade, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Stay tuned for some drumming with Kade. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Awesome. That was a good one.
Episode number 4 of Drummers Eating Pizza. In the can. Done. Special thanks to Kade Parkin. What a great conversation with Kade. Young drummer, 28 years old. I definitely feel like the world of drumming has a lot of great drummers up and coming, and Kade is one of them. Please check out all the different groups that he's playing at. He's at Bishop's Lounge all the time in Northampton. Please go check him out. Check out Bella's Bar Talk. Episode 5. Not even sure who's going to be on episode 5 yet. Making calls, doing the thing. It's going to happen, though. I've got 4 or 5 people that we're just trying to get some schedule together. But it'll be out soon. So please like, share, subscribe. Check out all the other episodes if you haven't. And we will see you on the next episode of Drummers Eating Pizza. Have an awesome afternoon, evening, whatever it is when you're watching this. See you soon. Peace.